right, so I've done a few, 2 or 3 videos already on college football expansion, conference realignment, whatever you want it to be. And I've tackled the initial speculation of Texas and Oklahoma leaving. Then I talked about them actually leaving. And then I talked about what this means for the Big 12. But what I want to talk about today and in this video is what this means for the Big 10. Because there's 2 big conferences in college football. There's the SEC and there's the Big 10. Those are the 2 heavyweights. The SEC's had, more success on, the national stage. Alabama winning all those national championships, LSU that year, tons and tons of NFL prospects. But the Big 12's not far behind. Ohio State is one of those elite top 3, 4, 5 programs in college football. I'd say top 4 program. You think about it, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma. Seems like those are the 4 teams that are always in the playoff hunt every single year. But the Big 10 is also neck and neck with the SEC because of the amount of money that they bring in. And the conferences have a lot in common. They both have very passionate fan bases. You think of Michigan, you think of Ohio State, you think of Nebraska, you think of Iowa, Wisconsin. All these schools have rabid fan bases, and that is what is important to them, and it's selling out games and commitment to football, and you have that in both conferences. And so those are your 2 heavyweights, your 2 superpowers, I guess, if you want to say. So with the SEC adding Oklahoma and Texas and potentially more, maybe potentially raiding some ACC schools, what is the Big 10 going to do? Now, before the Big 10 does anything, they need to keep their house in order, because there's also rumors out there that Michigan and Ohio State have had some talks or rumors or whatever you want to be of potentially going to the SEC. That would be horrible for the Big 10. Great for the SEC. But the Big 10 needs to get that in order. I have a hard time seeing those schools leave, but, who knows? 2 weeks ago, I didn't think Texas and Oklahoma would go to the SEC. So, but let's just, for the sake of this, Ohio State, Michigan, I don't think they're going to leave. So they're staying. What is the Big 10 going to do? Now that Texas and Oklahoma are in the SEC, what can the Big 10 do? Now, the first kind of rumor was that was out there was that they were going to go to the Big 12 and they were going to take what looked like Kansas to be a lock and Iowa State potentially, maybe Oklahoma State. Now, that has since been kind of shot down. It sounds like those schools have reached out to the Big 10 to about potentially joining, but from all indications, it looks like the Big 10 has kind of shot them down. Now, at the time, I was a little optimistic because I'm like, okay, yeah, KU, you get KU basketball. Football's not the greatest, but you know what? For Nebraska fans, that's a quick, easy drive that they're used to. Iowa State, same thing. Iowa State is a top 10 program once again, potential college football playoff contender. They've got a good basketball program. Once again, Iowa State, Nebraska, Kansas, kind of fits in with the geographics. But it sounds like they aren't going to be joining. And in all reality, it doesn't make any sense. Why would the Big 10 choose to bolster up their conference by adding Iowa State and Kansas? Kansas is probably one of the most dysfunctional, probably the worst Power 5 football program in America. Why do you want to bring those guys in? You got laughed at for bringing in Maryland and Rutgers. And Rutgers is looking pretty good with Greg Schiano now coming and up and coming. So why would you want those? And it doesn't make sense to me. You don't go and say, hey, we're gonna go out and we're going to counter Texas and Oklahoma with Kansas and Iowa State. And it's no slight at Iowa State, because once again, Iowa State is a legit playoff caliber team. But the thing about Iowa State, they're dependent on their coaching. And Matt Campbell is one heck of a coach. Tremendous. But how long is he going to be there? I don't necessarily think this is a destination job for Matt Campbell. And he may be there another 3, 4, 5 years. But this is a job that when he leaves, you got to hope you get someone just like him. Because Iowa State has had some success here and there. They haven't touched this success yet. And so they're a program that's dependent on having a good hire, and I don't think them joining the Big Ten, say Matt Campbell goes off to the NFL, that's not going to say, oh, well, hey, Iowa State's going to get the next big, huge coach. So what should the Big Ten do? I think there are two schools out there, two programs out there that I think should be target 1A and 1B. And if I'm the Big Ten, if I'm Kevin Warren, I am being proactive, and I'm going hard after these two schools. Now, the first one's a no-brainer. It's Notre Dame. Whatever your feelings for Notre Dame is, their brand is a superpower. They've even gone to the college football playoff 2 of the last, 4 or 5 years, 2 times. They haven't had much success, but they've still been there. Lots of fan bases would love to be there. They've got the name recognition. They've got the talent. They've got everything. They're in the Big Ten footprint. They're in Indiana. They're such a logical fit. But the problem is they've got their connections with the ACC. And they're in the ACC for all their non-football sports, and they've got their scheduling agreement. It's going to be hard to poach Notre Dame from that ACC. But the thing about the Big Ten is, you could say, hey, if we're going to 2 superpowers, 2 big leagues, SEC and Big Ten, hey, we're right here. You're close. You've got those former rivals. You can put all your other sports in there. It can work. It's going to be tough, hey, especially if the ACC continues to keep going like it is. But if the SEC goes to 20 or 24, you got to know they're coming for Clemson. You got to know they're coming for North Carolina. They're coming for Miami, Florida State. Hey, does the Notre Dame want to stick in that ACC without those schools? Maybe not. The other school to kind of keep an eye on, and the other white whale top program, I said there's 2. Notre Dame was 1. The other one is USC. At this point in college football, geographics don't matter. If I'm Kevin Warren, I'm making the phone call to Notre Dame and USC right away. If I can, and I think USC, I don't have any inside information, but you can't imagine the USC is too terribly happy with the Pac-12. I know they got new leadership, and from all indications, their new commissioner seems like a good thing. But it's not like they're this, the Pac-12 is not great. And they would, they want to be relevant. They want to be the USC of old, and going to the Big Ten might help. Now, if the Big Ten is going to get USC, they can't just get USC and that's it. Okay, the Big Ten's at 14 schools right now. Say they don't get Notre Dame, so they add USC. That's 15. You're probably going to go up to once again 18, 20 schools, and you're going to go. We talked about this at the SEC. They're probably going to go into pods, 4-team pods. You play 3 teams in your pod every year, and then you kind of rotate around. The Big Ten will probably go the same way. So you need that West Coast pod. USC is one. UCLA is probably another. Do you go after Stanford? Academics. Big Ten would love to get Stanford's academics. Plus, they've had good success in football. Maybe not the last couple of years. We got, USC, UCLA, I think are, the 2 that you'd go hard after. Then, do you go after a Oregon? Do you go after a Washington? Do you go after, Stanford, Cal, Arizona? I've heard Colorado, I've heard Arizona, I've heard UCLA, and USC, but then you also think about Washington in those. If this is my decision, I'm Kevin Warren, I'm going to California schools. As much as and those are the schools that I'm going for. USC, UCLA. I'm going to try and get either Stanford or Cal, or maybe all 4 of those, and just have that California. Oregon would probably be a big one, so maybe you get the 3 schools. You get 2 California schools. Maybe you go Oregon. Maybe you go Colorado because it's close. But whatever it is, those are the schools I would get if I was in the Big Ten to combat Texas and Oklahoma, because I don't think you're going to get those ACC schools if you're in the Big Ten. Okay? I don't think you're going to get, what's there left in the Big 12? No offense to those schools. If you're going to make an impact that you want out of the Big Ten and expanding, you got to go out west. USC, is that team that program that you got to go get.